Hello and welcome to this MetaSwing tutorial for the Bloomberg terminal. This video is the second covering MetaSwing directional signals. We're going to dive into MetaSwing exit signals and transactional support signals. So we're going to talk about exit signals first, but let's show how to turn them on the screen. Simply right click, grab MetaSwing, go to Edit Color and Style, and up the Properties box pops. You can see we have upper and lower end bands and end-band ATR lines already turned on. Simply go down to where you see exit long and short, turn those two on, a little bit lower, turn on the signal images, and then hit update. And voila, there's your exit signals. Here, here, there, and there. Exit signals love volatility. The first signal we'll talk about in this video are the exit signals. This is the default view for exit signals. For an exit long, the E will appear above the price value, and for an exit short, such as right here, the E will appear below the price value. An exit long simply means that if you're in a long position, it's an exit applying to that. An exit short simply means that if you are currently in a short position, then the exit signal applies to your short position. Here's how the exits are produced. We'll zoom in here a little bit and show you here. You can see here we have an exit long, and the way that this is produced, quite simply, is that the opposite indicator, in this case the oversold indicator, once it becomes high enough in reading, it crosses a threshold that gets calculated, and that triggers an exit long. Once an overbought indicator rises high enough, indicating a high enough level of volatility, then the exit short gets triggered. That's how they're calculated. MetaSwing exits are in place to serve as high probability signals. They tell you the following. First, that price has completed the majority of its recent short-term directional move. For instance, here in December, price moves up and pauses. The next thing they tell you is that price will likely pause for the next 3 to 5 bars if the signal is counter to the trend. Let's look at the price action here in September. Price makes its short-term move up and then trays to the side for about 5 bars before the trend continues. This also happens in July as price trades up, comes to an exit point, also to resistance at an end band, and then pauses and retraces a little bit for about 5 bars, actually for about 7 or 8. Then the trend continues. The third thing it tells us is that price will likely reverse if the signal is in the direction of the trend. For instance, this exit signal here in October. Price retraces back a little into the exit signal, doesn't really waste much time, and the trend continues. Now let's pan forward. The last thing it tells you is that if the signal fails, then the intermediate trend is very suspect. In this example here, in early September, you can see that the signal essentially pauses, but the trend continues, the short-term trend continues on. So the intermediate term trend is probably going to weaken or come to an end, at least for some time period. The failure of the exit signal itself tells you that there's going to be at least weakness in that trend. Those are the four things that primarily exit signals do for you and tell you. In looking at a further couple of examples, here's a 60-minute chart of gold. As you can see, it generally makes for good entry points, even though it's an exit, when you are trading with the trend. Here, and once a trend is established, here, here. Let's pan forward. Again, a trend gets established, and good entries here, here. Once weakness comes into the trend, as you can see here on the trend wave, you need to be a little more careful. And again, as you can see, this exit here on 926 turns into a failure in combination with weakness on the trend, the trend wave indicator, forecasts that this downtrend may be coming to an end, and in fact it does at that point. But it gives you a little bit of advance warning that that trend may be ending. It's another good way to use exit signals. To show you how the exit signals are completely fractal, we're now looking at a 240-minute chart, and you can see that exit signals work much the same way. One of the ways that I actually like to use them is to switch to a higher time frame, such as this, and use the trend measurement to confirm, and then use the exit signals of the lower time frame. In that case, we were looking at 60 minutes. Use those and enter, and that would have been entries right in here. Now we'll switch to a daily chart, and we see that they're just as accurate there. Here we are during a time of very high volatility for gold, and you can see that this form of volatility adjusted measurement works well for entries and exits. Here we can see very timely exits to take your money off the table, pause and see if the trend is going to continue or not. Also here, and then excellent entry points as well for this trend following. The next signal is transactional support signals, and here's how you turn that on. Go to MetaSwing, edit colors and style. Right now, as you can see, we have the N bands on. So if you want to see the VVSR lines, which are what the transactional support signals are based on, you can turn them on here. And then right below that, just make sure that these two check boxes are checked next to transactional support, and that way the signals are on. And then hit update and you're fine. Now let's move on to transactional support signals. The TS signal presents just as you see here on the chart. It's a long only signal, and it prints a TS below the price bar. Transactional support signals are produced in conjunction with VVSR lines. The TS signal forms when price establishes itself above an existing VVSR line and then retraces down to the line again. Once there, it finds support. The signal is indicative of future buying pressure. Additionally, there's an intermediate bullish trend in place. So let's move on to another example We pan forward through the chart, and once again, price line shows us a transactional support signal, and what's happened is price has pulled back into a price level where significant buying has previously occurred, most likely due to undervaluation. Let's look at another example of TS signals. Here we're looking at a chart of CMG, an equity, Chipotle Mexican Grill, and it's an hourly chart. So let's zoom in a bit. We can see how price is in a solid uptrend. TS is kind of a reaffirming of a trend signal in a lot of ways. Price comes up, there's high volume, price climbs above that volume range, and then retraces back into the lower part of the range, and the signal occurs, buying again picks up, reaffirms, and continues on. Here's another signal, again similar behavior. In a similar way to exits, when a signal fails, it's a very good precursor to a trend breaking down. So in that way, even though the signal would fail, you can use it to your advantage because it's forecasting to you in advance that there's an awful lot of folks who had high volume at that previous level that have doubts about the futures of that trend. So you can use that to your advantage and say, okay, this trend's coming to an end when you see a signal failure. One of the better ways to understand a transactional support signal would be through quantitative test results. Here are results that tracked 2,935 TS signals and this performance, while concurrently taking a dual position in the S&P 500 index. These are statistically valid results, and I think that they show positive expectancy just like our other signals. This is because we're comparing directly to the S&P 500 index where the actual signal trades are occurring. The walk-forward performance profile here indicates a pullback in an uptrend where buyers tend to get aggressive. Note the accumulating signal difference between the test population and the concurrent S&P positions. There's a real divergence of performance. Perhaps what's happening is that the market is temporarily limiting the upside movement of strong stocks while taking down weaker ones. The TS signal alerts you to those stronger stocks. Thank you for watching this second installment of MetaSwing Directional Signals. Please feel free to reach out to us if we can help you in any way. Good luck and good trading.